morning, everyone. This is Tala with Drive-thru Therapy. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight on another episode. And tonight is actually a pretty exciting episode. It's, however, very complex. It's so complex, darn it, that I actually... I'm recording this the third time, hoping that this is the time where I get all the details I need to get delivered to you. I really need to honor this topic because I've had quite a bit of experience with this population being the men with mommy issues. And it's the much anticipated sequel to a previous episode that I did on women with daddy issues. So it just only makes sense to be fair and to deliver the other side of this story. It's pretty important, I think. And so I want you to keep an open mind as you are listening to this. If this applies to you, wonderful. That means there's something in there for you and that you are ready for healing and admitting the truth about some things that are difficult to admit to. And so if you're a mom, it's good to know this information about boys with mommy issues. If you are a man listening to this, it's good to know these aspects within yourself that you might need to heal and that will help you with further self-exploration and self-understanding. And that's what this is all about for me. So yeah, let's go for it. So tonight we're going to be talking about men with mommy issues. I've narrowed it down to 3 types of mommy issues that are the most common in men, but I added one specific one that I just could not leave out. And this has to do a lot with sexual abuse. So if you do not like hearing about sexual abuse, if you're triggered by it, I completely understand. And that's why I put this disclaimer. This will be an episode in which we do mention sexual abuse and how it impacts a boy in relationship with his mother. So please feel free to click off if this is not for you. I completely understand. Now, for everybody else, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about, in order for us to understand mommy issues in men, you really have to know the social role that moms play in our society. And they play a very important role. A social role is a role that we all accept as a society about what a mom does and what a mom is in our society. And that role, basically, we celebrate every year, once a year. We call it Mother's Day. That's the role we're talking about. That's the social role that a mother plays. It is a role that consists of nurturing, teaching. A mom's role is significant in teaching communication to a child. She is much more in tune and much more equipped to teach communication about feelings. And that's really within her comfort zone. Her influence to a boy is significant because she provides the support for him to be able to express himself freely. She helps build his self-esteem through that type of acceptance. A mom is very important for a boy's self-esteem. She is the one that's open-minded. If you think about which parent that you might have gone to growing up to tell a secret to, more than likely you're going to be open to telling a secret to mom than you are to dad. Or at least that's the case for many people that have that experience. And so mom is usually the open-minded one of both parents, the more flexible of both parents. So she's very, very important in the area of social emotional development, communication. Those are the expertise of a mom. And she creates that spaciousness for a boy to experiment and become whatever he wants to become without judgment, this unconditional acceptance from mom. Now, that's the role we all accept as mom, right? We celebrate that role, like I said, and it's pretty darn important. Now, mom balances the expectations of what a boy has to face as a boy in our society. Because there is a whole list that I'm going to talk about of what the social role of a male is. And it will help illuminate the importance of a mom because she needs to balance this role that is expected of males. Now, the male social role includes the acceptance of men being unemotional. Men are logical. Men hold places of leadership, or they're meant to be leaders. Men are accepted to be independent, expected to also be competitive, bold, it is common for men to also be expected to be aggressive. And it's part of that conditioning that men go through and what we accept as a society to be masculine. Now, on its own, that masculine business without the feminine intrusion in there is going to be a little too rough. It lacks the emotional education that it needs. We are sentient beings, beings that feel and use emotions. This is part of our human experience. And when we're not able to accept our emotions, use them, understand them, we are not going to be able to maneuver in life in a healthy way. The social acceptable male role might reject emotions, but in reality, we need emotions. We need to be able to know what they are. And in knowing what they are, we can help regulate and self-soothe and all the stuff that requires us to be in tune with our emotions. So I want you to really understand the importance of a mom in the male social conditioning. She provides that balance. So this way, he is a well-rounded boy, also man, able to use emotions properly, not run away from them, not reject them, not repress them, which is how many of these disorders that we know about in mental health start. So mom is so darn important, people. She's so important when she does her role in a healthy way. But when she doesn't, then mommy issues start to sprout up. And that's what this is all getting us to. Now, the first thing I need you to consider before I even start labeling what these mommy issue types are, I need you to consider the formula that I'm about to give you first in order for you to better understand how a male is going to respond because of mommy issues. You need to consider the temperament of a child as well as the role that he played with his mother. So, as I'm talking about each type, I will be referring to the role that the boy played with his mother, depending on the type of mother he had. And of course, based on his personality, is what kind of mommy issues are going to develop. Okay? So, let's get into talking about that a little bit more. Now, the first mom that contributes to mommy issues is the completely absent mother. The absent mother, physically not there. Also, to include the mom that just kind of abandoned the child early on, just like no understanding of what happened to her. She just kind of left, right? So this child emotionally grows up having to learn mostly probably from male influences, mimicking other males, because that's exactly what I would do if I was trying to survive as a boy that's been either orphaned, abandoned, any of these things early on in childhood. And I have no experience with the female population, with female caregiving. I will go to mimicking my gender. Like, what is masculine? I will be very masculine because I'm trying to help raise myself. And so I will become heavily influenced by the masculine social role as a way to guide myself. Within me, I might repress or reject feminine aspects like love, nurturing, things of a feminine context, emotions, things like that. I won't really find value in because the masculine-based society may not find value in that, may even call it weak at times. We've heard this before, that if you have emotions, you're weak. If you show emotions, you're weak. And that's part of males' upbringing or social conditioning. And so they might reject emotions within them and not be able to use them. And that's a very repressed outcome when it comes to emotions. So this child grows up with almost a sense of detachment from the ability to bond or the need to bond with a female. It will be mostly based on the socially acceptable male role when bonding with a female, a partner. So my favorite fictional character to illustrate this would be the very masculine James Bond. Now, James Bond was an orphan, and he basically has difficulty, you can even see it in the movies, he has difficulty with creating intimacy and bonding. Women are kind of act as ornaments in his world. They're beautiful. They're great to look at. They come in and out of his life. But when he's betrayed by women or they leave, he just moves on really quickly. He doesn't acknowledge his emotions about him too long. And he just becomes this male acceptable role. And that makes sense. There's no anger from this type of mommy issue towards women. There's no anger because it's not a woman did not necessarily directly harm this child, this boy. So there's no hidden anger beneath this idea. But women are not going to be also treated with a lot of depth and substance. Okay. So there's no anger, but there's also no intimacy, I guess is the best way to say that. Part of the traits that are going to be shown on this adult male with mommy issues are going to be kind of fear of commitment, fear of abandonment, having multiple partners, not really settling on one, difficulty understanding the need to bond with a woman. Like, do you see the idea here? Not going to communicate emotions really well, going to be the strong and silent type. All that is going to be represented or can be represented with this type of mommy issue, which is going to make it very difficult for this adult male to create a relationship that has depth, that's longer lasting. He's going to have to learn a lot about communicating and all the stuff that comes with what a mom would teach, the idea of self-acceptance, nurture, bonding. All these little intricacies are going to be missed, and he has to learn them in adulthood. The next mommy issue is the one that I actually think is the contributor to the most angry of men, and anger of men towards women. And it comes from having an immature mom or an emotionally unavailable mom. Now, this type of mom could be an alcoholic, an addict. She's chasing boyfriends or just really focused on the marriage and, trying to control that marriage. She is emotionally not necessarily interested in the bonding of the children. They just happen to be there and they serve some sort of purpose, but it's not really to bond. It's not really to enjoy parenting and enjoy the children. In this case, the children are kind of like, they come along with her and they're the little ducklings following her around. Usually this mom tends to be immature. She's the kind of mom that could be partying at night and she doesn't really perceive that the child is going to miss her, won't even remember her. And she goes out to party every night, chasing whatever it is that we're chasing. And the kids kind of grow up fending for themselves and learning how to tuck themselves in bed, and feeling a sense of emotional abandonment. And that's pretty important because it's not a physical abandonment. This is an emotional abandonment, which to me, in a therapeutic sense, I think it's much more of a deeper wounding, because it's a person is physically there, but they're not emotionally available. And so that's even more frustrating and confusing for the child. And the child has to deal with an immature mom, meaning that they're going to be doing either parenting themselves or they're going to pick up the pieces and be available to mom and play the role of a parent to mom sometimes. If she's an alcoholic, the boy will learn how to, clean her up after she's throwing up or he's going to learn to sign his own report cards. This kiddo is going to also be very highly self-preserving. He's going to be the one that learns to hustle in order for him to get his needs met because mom is not around. Mom is not emotionally really there, but also if she is an only parent, and there's no father around, her role as a protector is not there. So again, the kid is learning to self-preserve, fend for himself. And if he has siblings, he's learning to take care of them. Mom is immature. She's chasing her own needs. She might give attention, praise, affection to the children only if it suits her, if it's convenient to her, if she gets something out of it from them. But if she doesn't, then they become annoying, irritable, an inconvenience to her. And she will demonstrate this with irritability. She'll be the kind that throws a tantrum, and everything will be about her. She will act younger than her age. This will be very apparent. Now, also included in this type of mom issues, the mom that could be in a very abusive relationship. She's tolerating it. She's making excuses for really bad behavior in the family, right? So if the father is abusing the kids, she's kind of not protecting the kids, allowing it to happen. She's taking the helpless role. Oh, I'm here because I don't want to have a broken family, but in fact, it's distorted, broken to pieces. The male figure may be abusing kids and wife in the home, and she still stays and makes excuses for that. So in a lot of ways, the boy may at that point start to play the role of savior, or he may just kind of start to meet his needs, like I said, elsewhere, on his own. This kind of boy that grows up in this type of transaction with mom is going to be highly self-preserving, highly independent. He will have a strong distaste for vulnerability. Very strong. He won't like vulnerability or communicating about emotions, because he will perceive emotions are weak. Because imagine this little boy having to grow up in this household where mom is emotionally unavailable. She's, doing everything else but parenting this kiddo. And he has to shut down what a boy would want from his mom, which is love, affection, a hug, nurturing, to play with him, to enjoy him, to laugh at his jokes, to show how proud she is of him. All these things that support a healthy self-esteem, the boy learns to not want them. He learns to shut that down within him. And so when they do creep up in him, this need to be nurtured, to be praised, he'll have to learn to do without and to not prioritize and just say, I just don't need it. I don't need it. That's how this kiddo would learn to survive growing up with that type of mom. And so as he ages, this will be demonstrated in his interaction and bonding with women. He will have difficulty with, of course, communicating emotions. He won't find value in them. He'll perceive them as weak. He would also perceive women's emotionality as weak, their ability to communicate as weak. And he will try in a lot of ways to either control himself, so this way he never becomes vulnerable, never falls in love, never having to invest enough emotions for him to lose anything. He doesn't want to feel this rejection he felt growing up, because it would be like a stabbing, over and over in your heart, being betrayed over and over in your heart by your mother, being left for somebody else, being discarded, It's like an over and over heartbreak for this boy that's going to have to protect himself eventually by simply not getting involved with a woman that could possibly hurt him if he has feelings for her. So he will make sure, he will do everything he can not to have feelings for her. He might manipulate, control her, whatever needs to happen, become non-committal. That's that guy. He will do everything. And in the process of him protecting himself, unfortunately, he will lose out on opportunities for love because he will never invest. And let's say a good opportunity of love comes along, nobody's going to hang around if you're not investing in love. And it's like it's only a one-way street in that type of relationship with that type of man with that kind of mommy issue. So it's important for us to know that the mommy issue that comes from an emotionally unavailable mother is probably the one that hurts the most. And it hurts other women as well later on that are in relationship with these men, because they're just never going to be able to do anything to help this male become more trusting of women. He's not going to find value in love, relationship, loyalty, because his loyalty wouldn't be to women. It would be to himself and his self-preservation. And so he's learned to protect himself this way. To undo that would be, nearly impossible. I would hate to say it. Nearly impossible without it being being done on purpose, right? So if this man decides to go to therapy, he's deciding to really learn how to be vulnerable, risk those beautiful things, and learn how to accept, nurture, and love and reciprocate it properly. He can learn it, but he's going to want to do that. A woman herself cannot teach this man and save him and help him love all of a sudden because she's with him. She will not be able to save this man. So unfortunately, this type of man can pick women that are easily going to be manipulated, that want very little from him, and that will do the most for him. That's because she always has to prove that he's lovable. She has to make up for what mom didn't do. And so this woman is going to be, juggling balls in the air, putting plates on her nose, and it's going to be a circus to try to make this guy happy. She thinks that there's going to be a key to make this guy happy. Not with that kind of mommy issue. Oh no. That guy is not going to put his walls down. He's going to want a woman to perform all these acts for him, but he's really never going to let his walls down. And of course, he's going to suffer, and he's going to make other women pay for something they did not do. So that is the unavailable mother and her son, and those mommy issues that come from that. Now, the third mommy issue is going to come from the mom that's on the other extreme, where the absent mom is not there at all. The emotionally unavailable is emotionally not there. This one here is so available. I call it the mom that's excessively controlling. In that household, she basically runs the show. She is like the main set of emotions that everybody in the house has to accommodate. That's that mom. When she doesn't like something, it's wrong. When she likes something, it's the right thing. So there's always wrong, right rules in this household. Don't do this, don't do that. This mom attempts to excessively control this little boy. Now, this boy and his temperament could cause one of two things. Either he becomes an obedient boy based on his temperament. If he's mild enough and he's, doesn't like loudness and he's just quiet and introverted, he will just obey to avoid conflict. Or he's going to resist. The one of concern to us when it comes to mommy issues will be the one that obeys. That's the one that later grows up with mommy issues. Excessively controlling mom. This boy learns to basically please her. She becomes a priority for him emotionally. He has to discard his own emotions to please mom. So she becomes the middleman to his self-esteem, to his well-being, to feeling good. Because if she approves it, great, everything goes well. When she doesn't approve it, oh man, all hell breaks loose. The child will be punished. Even if it's not physically, it'll be passive-aggressively. Like, I just will not acknowledge your existence, also known as silent treatment. And it'll be very severe. This mom is going to be very passive-aggressive, and she's going to that's the mom that uses silent treatments, okay? She will also throw emotional tantrums when she doesn't get what she wants. She's going to get involved in everything when it comes to this boy, have opinions about everything when it comes to her son, and the son just learns to just say yes, just to avoid conflict, just so he doesn't have to hear her. Because she's overwhelming to a boy who's not necessarily extroverted or loud or talking back or resistant. His temperament just doesn't really allow for that. So mom doesn't accommodate to his temperament. Unfortunately, her temperament takes over his, and he has to lose his person and personality piece by piece for mom if she doesn't like it. So this kiddo is really having to play a role for mom, and he becomes something else secretly. While all the outcomes are sad for any of these boys with mother issues, to me, this is probably the one that is really, really sad as an adult, because this adult learns that his feelings are not valid. They're not supported, and that he at one point learns to discard his own feelings because they were discarded by mom growing up. His feelings were not important, and he was made to believe that it was only important if mom approved of them. So he learns to repress his own wants and needs because, again, if his wants and needs don't line up with mom, he would be told that, and he may be punished for that or not spoken to or something. It would be a reaction that he would want to avoid. So he learns to hide his wants and needs. So later on, this little boy turns into an adult male. He gets into a relationship. He's going to do the same thing by meeting or choosing a woman that fits his mother's type, whether you like to believe that or not. It really does happen. He will choose a woman that helps him not prioritize his own emotions because he won't be good at it. He will pick a woman that prioritizes her own emotions and makes him do it as well. And he's like, I'm happy to do it because that's the role I enjoy the most. Or actually, he might not enjoy it. Of course, it becomes a burden. Not caring about how you feel is a burden. But it is the most familiar and it is effortless in his world. So he slips into that role that he knows how to perform so well, which is people pleasing, seeking validation from the partner, learning to hide himself from the partner, his wants and needs in every way. This is the guy that will have other things that he does on the side that's secretive, like, watching pornography or soliciting of sex. Like, he'll have other things that he might hide in the shadow and not try to explore with his wife or help her understand. He'll only show her what she finds acceptable because he's learned to do that for all these years growing up. This is also the same boy that later on wants to either save a woman or be saved by one. And more than likely, it's going to be saved by one. Because he, again, played that role. A woman told him what to do his whole life. And so he will later on even continue to have that role, not only with his wife telling him what to do, but he will be the man that listens to mom and what she says and still wants to please her and has that very well rehearsed, conditioned response towards her. So this is really important to make sure that this adult male heals this aspect of him and learns to identify his own feelings, his own wants and needs without shaming and guilting himself for wanting and needing things. And mom growing up in this case, this very excessively controlling mom, would have made him feel ashamed or guilty or wrong for wanting what he wanted if it didn't line up with her beliefs. And so he's going to have to unlearn that by simply having to validate himself so he doesn't require it from his partners. So the self-esteem now is the responsibility of this adult male. It is no longer the responsibility of mom or anybody else for his own healing. So that was mommy issue type 3, the excessively controlling mother. So finally, the last type of mommy issue you can find in a boy results from sexual abuse that happens by mom towards the son. And this one here is probably the ultimate mommy issue of all mommy issues. This child now learns, unfortunately, that love or nurturing is a sexual thing. He perceives mom's attention in that way as love and nurture, which of course is going to distort the idea of love, intimacy, sex. All of it is going to end up being distorted. The door is open too soon, so the child is getting an education on this a lot earlier than he should. And of course, he's not going to make sense out of it from an adult perspective. It'll be from a child perspective. Now, the boy will learn to play a different role with mom. He will, that includes sexual performance. Unlike reports for females towards the sexual abuse by the father, men's reports of sexual abuse by mom is less aversive when it comes to the sexual act. The sexual act is not necessarily the biggest traumatic experience of that. It is usually what happens afterwards. It's when the child comes back to try to get near the mom and reach for the sexual gratification that she's taught him to want. She helped stimulate that need in that child. Unfortunately, that's really when you see this happen. It's like the child is going to go and ask mom for that, and the mom is going to reject this boy, and that's the ultimate betrayal for this boy, the ultimate rejection for this boy. Now, this type of wounding, in order for this little boy to learn to build himself up, he's going to have to do a lot of interesting work to build his self-esteem up, and it will be very protective. Now, this is the very highly protected male on the inside, very self-preserving. He's actually even more self-preserving than the boy of the emotionally unavailable mom. This one here is the top line, the most self-preserving of all of them, because his anger would have had to been repressed. His sadness, his heartbreak would have had to been repressed as he watches his mom form a relationship with another male, and he's discarded. And so it's very hard to imagine a little boy living with this, having to pick up the pieces. We all know that mom is not going to have a conscience all of a sudden come back and tell him, you know what, son, I did you wrong, and I need to correct this. I need to make this right. I'm so sorry for using you and abusing you. And like, there's no responsibility taking here. So we know this, and the child will just have to live with it, pick up the pieces, and come up with a way to protect himself. Now, in him developing that, the people that have studied individuals that have had been sexually abused by their mom, or boys that have been sexually abused by mom, we found a correlation between that and narcissism. The ultimate, if you think about it, the ultimate form of protection for any man would be narcissism. He loses his sense of self, and he replaces it with this kind of ego, this kind of personality that he has to create in order for him to protect himself. Because once he creates that personality, he doesn't have to give anything away. And if people hurt him, they haven't really seen him. So they only hurt that fake personality he shows everybody else. And that's where narcissism really is created here, as a way to protect this adult male from ever being hurt or rejected that way ever again. And so he learns to repress emotions. He would learn to manipulate them in others, especially women. Now, this guy is going to be angry at women. He will use them, abuse them, have very little remorse for their pain, for their suffering. These women are usually going to pay up for what these moms have put these boys through. And so the adult male, in this case, with mommy issues, with this type of mommy issues, becomes highly defensive with women, highly aggressive with women. It's just an excessively negative, aversive, abusive response towards women. That's that guy. Because in fact, he had experienced the ultimate rejection from the main woman that should have played this important social role in his life of protecting him, of nurturing him, of taking care of him, of his self-esteem. She, in this case, would have been single-handedly destroying it. So now let's go into the healing of men with mommy issues. What do we do from here? Now, the man with mommy issues has to heal aspects that primarily deal with vulnerability. They have to really know that they do not like vulnerability and that they are going to have to heal it and risk vulnerability in order for them to heal it. Especially with women. They're going to have to risk it. With the right woman in a healthy way, it's a wonderful thing. They're going to have to find value in doing so. They're going to heal these old patterns of repressing communication. They're going to learn to communicate verbally in a healthy way. They're allowed to want and need things, and they're allowed to communicate them. So all this requires practice, identifying which mommy issue you might have in order for you to heal the specific thing that needs to be healed within you. And so this is so important because it'll affect generations to come. Males with mommy issues could leave a trail of suffering behind them if they don't learn to heal. They're going to leave children behind, mothers behind, and they're going to continue to live in a self-preserving stance or a hidden stance. I'm hiding myself from people in order for me not to experience rejection, hurt, if I showed them who I am. And so this type of wounding is deep, and it requires some important work on the male's end in order for him to heal these mommy issues. Now, these are the mommy issues that I have identified through the years of working with the male population with mother issues. And so there's probably more, but those are the ones that are the main ones that I just had to put in there. I really did, because I think people can benefit from them and benefit from learning about them within themselves. A man with mommy issues is not intentionally out there to harm, is not intentionally out there to hurt women. But unfortunately, you could see the history would have developed this sense of self-preservation they have not learned to take responsibility for as adults. So it is, of course, without saying that the child is not responsible for what happened to him growing up. He's not responsible for any of that. He just had to survive it. And so we honor him and we thank his resiliency for that. But as an adult, if I continue to hurt others because I'm hurt, now that's a whole different residual trail that we're leaving that's generational. And nobody wants that on their conscience. Nobody does. So healing is not just for me, a man with mommy issues. It'll be for generations after me, because I'm learning to bond with my kids. I'm learning to bond with a woman, create healthy relationships. Even though I have very little memories in bonding with a woman, I'm really trying my best to change and work with it. And I think I can commend people on healing that, because they would have no memories in healthy bonding with a woman, and so they would have to really figure it out and feel it out, and I think that's amazing for the people that really try to heal this. So I hope this finds you well wherever you're at on your journey, and that we look at whether it's mommy issue, daddy issues as a place of suffering, and that we need to help people become more aware of that suffering and how they can help themselves. And after this episode, I hope you take your motherly role serious. If you're a mother out there listening to this, I need you to know how important you are in a son's life. You impact him generationally. You show him how to give love and receive love. You enhance the quality of his life and help him meet his needs and think he's worthy of meeting his needs. Look how important you are, Mom, to your son. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. And as always, I'm sending you love and light. T.F. Hodge says, "Mother is her son's first God. She must teach him the most important lesson of all, how to love." This has been an episode of Drive-thru.